Hi, I'm Sarah Freyermuth. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the SGA president.
My name is Abbie Haug. I'm year 2019 and my preferred pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the SGA vice president. So our campaign slogan was putting student back in student government, and a few ways that we're doing that specifically in Senate is adding a component to the Senate agenda that has not been there before, and that's this piece of discussions. So every week we are having different focused discussions where we're talking about different student issues and tabling every Monday night in order to make sure that we're getting student feedback from students going to the cage, going to their cars to go off campus, going to their POs, and presenting that in Senate every week. And I think that's new this year and different in that it's a direct contact with the students that we're getting every single week, and then a direct report is given based on that information every week as well.
And then one big thing that we're going to be doing this year along with Senate is that we're going to be doing a year-long audit of SGA, both internally and externally, and we're going to be doing that as a way to kind of see how are students involved in student government. Are there certain students who are privileged? Are there students who are left out? And that in terms of who is involved with it internally, how is money spent internally, but also in how does SGA interact with the greater population. And so we're hoping that that data will help us and help further years make more informed decisions and make sure that SGA is really reaching all students equally.
I think in order to create a more responsive and inclusive student government, we are really doing this audit, and not even just doing the audit this year and then hoping that the changes get done in future years, but making sure that we're analyzing the data by interim and implementing some of those changes in the spring. And I think by doing that as well, we're hoping to kind of get on the forefront of some issues and be a little bit more proactive. And it's something we're balancing because we think it is still important to be responsive as things come up, but in what ways can we engage with students or engage with administration on different campus concerns and student issues before they get too big and too bad or dangerous.
I think administrators at St. Olaf tend to not always get students involved on the front end of issues, and so we saw that a lot through the way that the Bow House situation was handled and kind of implemented last year. A lot of the ways that it happened where students weren't really told what was going on, and then students eventually did get involved in kind of the conversation, but it kind of took students forcing their way to the table instead of being invited to the table. So we're trying to figure out like what are ways that administrators can invite students to the table from the front end so that all of the big decisions on campus that are really going to impact student life are made with students, and not only students in mind, but with students actually at the table advocating for themselves. And we're wanting to think which students are the ones being heard. Like, is it just certain students that are always called on to be heard, or is it really actually representative of the whole student body? People in general tend to like to hear feedback or say that they want to hear feedback, but if they hear feedback that they don't like, they just decide, okay, this isn't what I wanted to hear, so I'm just gonna pick what you said that I wanted to hear and run on that. And that's something we really want to avoid, because if there is a problem that students are saying is serious and we haven't heard about it yet and it's something surprising, that should be a red flag to us. That should be a sign that we're out of touch with students, and that shouldn't be happening. And so I think that's something that when we hear those things that are surprising to us, we want to pay extra attention to them and make sure that there's follow-up and make sure that our ideas and our policies change because of that.
And one thing I think we've heard a lot of is there's no follow-up on what, so Senate does something or SGA does something, and then it goes to administrators and no one really knows where it goes or what happens and if it actually impacts anything. And I think a really good example of that is the resolution on Bow House and mental health that Senate passed last year. And that is something I'm actually hoping to bring up in Senate tomorrow and think about, okay, what has actually changed on this resolution? Has the administration responded to any of these demands or requests in the resolution? And do we want to make another one of these? Or how are we going to continue checking up on the key people involved in this decision on this list of things that students said they wanted and SGA put forward, and how are we going to make sure that there's that follow-up on that? And I think on the programming side of SGA as well, something that we really care about and our CFO really cares about, Mac Bendixson, is that all of the money we're spending has an impact, and really looking at what is every dollar going to and what is the way that we can use each dollar to its fullest. And I think that shows in advocacy, and how are we spending money through advocacy in a way that's really effective and impactful, but also how are we doing that through our programming? What events are we putting on that reaches as many students in as many different pockets on campus as possible, and what are we doing that actually creates either an impactful experience for students or an enjoyable one or a profound one. And I think just making sure we're not just putting on events to put on events, but that they have a meaning and an impact.